Hi, everybody. Mitch Tampbaum here. Thanks for joining me today for this week's Security News Update. Let's see what we got here. Under security and privacy alerts, here's an interesting one. There's a new banking Trojan that runs on Android that intercepts calls to your bank. So you think you're calling your bank, and you're really calling the bad guys. Um, this apparently how your phone gets infected is when you download software from third-party app stores, typically the shadier ones, not surprisingly. So as long as you use official channels and you're somewhat careful about what you download, you're probably not going to get hit by this one. But it is an interesting an attack. We're seeing some of the flow down as a result of the government deciding it's going to spend less money. CISA's Emergency Management and Response Information Security Analysis Center, ISAC, is shutting down due to budget cuts. This particular ISAC focuses on securing critical infrastructure and emergency services. It's shut down on June 1st. It had been being supported by the U.S. Fire Administration. They say they no longer have the budget to do that. This is just, one more way the feds are telling businesses, even critical infrastructure, you're on your own, and we hope you figure it out because it's not our problem. There's been a lot of reports this week about a quote breach, which is not a breach, of 16 billion records, most of which is unreported. So I think there's pieces of this which are true and pieces of it which are not true. So the 16 billion records is true. That's a lot of records that have been compromised. This is an amalgamation of breaches over time. Many of these breaches were never reported, which I think is probably the case. I think, maybe half of the breaches that actually occur are reported, but that's probably being optimistic, maybe like a third. So the fact that they weren't reported is not a big surprise, but this is not like a new 16 billion record breach. That's not what we're talking about. Still, if 10%, 20% of those records are valid still, that puts it at the 1 billion to 3 billion record scope. These records are available for download on the dark web by the bad guys. That's a problem. In the CMMC department, focusing this week on your system security plan, really, really important. It's the only part of CMMC where if you go to an assessment and you don't have a system security plan, it is an instant fail. The assessment is stopped, and you lose. So a lot of stuff talking about that. If you need help designing your system security plan, give us a call. In the software and hardware department, Twitter has given us some clarity on what they call their encrypted messaging, or what I call their not so encrypted messaging. As is everything in the world Twitter, it has X in its name, and this is called X Chat. It's trying to keep up with things that have been around forever, like WhatsApp, FaceTime, and other products. So it's got disappearing messages. It's got audio and video calls. Nothing magic there. Just kind of keeping up with the Joneses. It has some form of encryption, not anywhere near as good as a lot of the other encryption. It's not end-to-end because Musk is controlling the encryption keys, which means that not only can Twitter read the messages, but they can give the encryption keys to anybody they want to. So that's why I call it not so encrypted. If you want something that's encrypted, give us a call. This is not that. ConnectWise, which is a huge product in the remote management and monitoring space, they're rotating their code signing certificates because apparently they are exploitable. They have rotated their keys last Friday or 2 Fridays ago, maybe. And so hopefully everybody's running on the patched version. But if your managed service provider is using ConnectWise, you probably ought to check. Can't hurt. Under the legislative and legal department, Apple is facing a class action lawsuit over the restriction that users must use iCloud to back up their Apple devices. It's not exactly completely correct. If you want to back up like your pictures or something, you use anything you want. But if you want to actually back up your device, the only thing that's available is iCloud. Apple said, we let users back up your photos. That don't exactly let them restore it, not really, but you can back it up. And the judge said, "Yeah, I don't think so. That's not quite right." So this suit continues. We'll see where it goes. The Senate, it passes a crypto regulation bill, sort of, kind of, typical. Well, yeah, it does have some things that, like, it stops senators and congresspeople from profiting off the crypto revolution. Also, special government employees, like Elon was, but is no longer. It does not stop the president from profiting off of crypto, and he made like $50 million last quarter off that. So it doesn't do that. It looks like it only deals with the dollar stablecoin. And what that's going to do is give consumers a false sense of security, and I'm sure that a lot of them will often lose a lot of money as a result of that. It also stops states from having more effective regulation against crypto, but again, it seems to be limited to stable coins, which is a small part of the market. So I guess that part is good at least, but a bit of a mess, and trying to control how much regulation they're putting on it and how much they're not. In the breaches department, the city of Abilene says they, yay, expect to recover from their cyber attack, which happened a couple of months ago, in a couple of months. So potentially 4 months between when they would get hit with a cyber attack and now, 2 months now, and 2 more months before they're actually uh, done. They're replacing all their network gear, all their laptops and desktops. Pretty expensive remediation. And my question is, what would happen if this occurred to you? Would you be able to survive that? So, interesting question. The board docs, which is a piece of software that school districts use for uh, sort of managing the information that their board sees, and the information that the board distributes to the public. Apparently, it had a design flaw. It's not a bug. It was operating as designed. It's just the way it was designed. It was secure if you understood certain nuances, but a reasonable person making reasonable expectations would think things are secure when they weren't. And potentially attorney-client privilege documents were compromised, so it's a big mess. Tax resolution firm Optima, which is one of the biggies in that space, was hit by ransomware. Um, and the hackers claimed to have stolen about 70 gig of data. Since most of that data is text, 70 gig of data is a lot of data. And probably they're going to have a bunch of lawsuits, I would expect. And here's an interesting attack, and we know, when you hear it, you'll know why it is what it is. Israel-based hackers, when I say Israel-based, friendly to Israel. The government's not going to admit that it was them, but maybe it was. Hit the Novatext cryptocurrency exchange, compromised about $90 million in crypto. Don't know whether that's a lot for them, not a lot for them, but they burned the crypto. So they're not using it, but they want to make sure that Iran can't use it. And also, they stole all the source code, and they're publishing the source code. So a bit of a mess for Iran, of course. A lot of people would say, gee, that makes me lose a lot of sleep. Not. But I guess if you had crypto in the exchange there, that probably wouldn't be comforting. This one's a big one, and there's no quick fix to this. Thousands of solar farms are vulnerable to China. The issue is that there's hardware inside these. Well, two things. First of all, a lot of these things are just exposed to the internet. And they've researchers already found like 20,000 of these systems that are already compromised. That's one problem. The other problem is that many of these things phone home to China in ways that are not documented and so can't be blocked. We don't exactly know all the things that they're sending back to China. But it's certainly possible that that would mean that China could turn off these solar systems if they decided to. So that part is not great either. Is your TV a bad box? Bad box is a second generation now malware campaign, and it has infected over 1 million home internet connected devices. And they use them as botnet network, uh, you know, uh, systems that are used to attack other systems more so than try to compromise the data on your system, but they could do that too. So there's been multiple attempts to kill this thing, and it just won't die. Microsoft has released something called the Microsoft 365 Windows Cloud PC. Basically, it's a low cost, low implementation effort version of a virtual desktop in the cloud. Normally, with virtual desktop in the cloud, you have to build up all this infrastructure, and it's expensive and time consuming and not good for folks that need onesie twosies in the cloud. This will work onesie twosies for sure. And it's pretty cool. I'm playing with it to learn more about it. In the security news update section, car production in the U.S. could potentially shut down in a matter of weeks due to China's restriction on rare earth magnets. The president says that he's gotten some concessions from China on that. China seems to be trickling out a little bit of rare earth stuff, but not a lot. So, Ford's already said that they had to shut down one plant last month due to a lack of parts. So, you know, it really is a function of how much Xi wants to go uh, um, put a noose around the president's neck. Um, and really, the president doesn't have much of an alternative. I mean, China is the source. Could we go fix that? Yeah. How long or how many billions of dollars will it take? Well, there are many billions of dollars, but more importantly, many years. So it's not clear exactly what the president can do other than to um, bow down to Xi and do whatever it is he wants, I guess. OpenAI has won a $200 million contract with the Defense Department to do cool stuff with AI. We'll see what happens out of that, but that sounds pretty cool. As AI proliferates, that was easy for me to say. Um, you may need to change the way you choose to block bots from visiting your site, because if people are using bots to do their work and you block them, then you may be blocking customers. Not a good plan. The DOJ plans to use civil forfeiture rules to try to claw back $200 million in stolen crypto, which I think they'll be successful at, which will be pretty cool. And then Finland is likely, we don't know yet, to charge 3 Russians over one of the undersea cable sabotage things from earlier in the year. We'll see what happens with that. They're going to make a decision soon. So, I guess the last thing to say is, as the feds continue to implement their, and I would say it's not cost saving strategy, cost shifting strategy, i.e., moving the cost from them to you. As we saw the information sharing and analysis center shut down that helps first responders. The state and local governments don't have the money to go off and pick up the slack. The Fed does not give them any money. So, basically I mean, for the most part, you're going to be on your own. So, the Feds are saying good luck. If you need help, obviously, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to do that. But unfortunately, you're going to be footing the bill. Until next time, thanks for listening and stay safe.